The Fate of the Furious is the 8th Fast and the Furious movie. Think about that for a second. 2001 we got The Fast and the Furious, the sorta rip-off of Point Break about Vin Diesel stealing DVD players. Now look how far we've come. Street racing franchise, international spy, save the world while going fast in cars franchise, overblown, basically throwback to the 80s and 90s ridiculous action movies. It's come a long way. And it stars Vin Diesel, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Charlize Theron, Michelle Rodriguez, Jason Statham is back again, Ludacris, Tyrese, Nathalie, Emanuel, Scott Eastwood, Kurt Russell, and it's directed by F. Gary Gray, who made things like Friday, which I never did see. He made A Man Apart, starring Vin Diesel, The Italian Job, starring Charlize Theron and Jason Statham. He made Be Cool, which featured Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He made Straight Outta Compton, Law Abiding Citizen, and now Fate of the Furious. And this is the first Fast and the Furious movie post Paul Walker's unfortunate tragic passing. Furious 7, they kind of halfway through had to adjust. Okay, bring in his brother, do CGI, all this and that. Give a great send-off to him. Beautiful, heartwarming, really touching. And now this movie, they gotta figure out what they're doing now. The franchise is going in a new direction of sorts. They gotta change it up. Paul Walker's gone. It can't be the same old, same old. Like, the formula is being shaken up. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is getting a bigger role. Vin Diesel, in this one, it's all new and different now, because Vin Diesel's character Dom, he, for reasons that I won't discuss, but like Charlize Theron gets to him and he teams up with her to become a villain, and the rest of his team, his family, he's turned his back on his family and they gotta go up against him, try bring him back to their side. And a lot of fast car-based action, fun time. And yeah, they shook it up. Vin Diesel's a villain? That's huge. He was the head. He was the father of the whole family. And now Paul Walker's gone, so they lose that interplay. That was kind of the magic of the movies, was Vin Diesel and Paul Walker weren't the best actors, but together they kind of covered each other's weaknesses and strengthened each other, so that Paul Walker had a sort of uplifting optimism and a sense of a moral code, and then Vin Diesel was the more dark, dour one. Paul Walker is fast, Vin Diesel is furious, you get the idea. And so now Vin Diesel has to go off, be a villain, and what's all this and that going on. And Dwayne Johnson is taking a charge. He's the leader of them now, which is amazing because Dwayne Johnson is the standout best part of these movies. Since they added him, he's been great. He's wonderful. Hobbs is a badass, covered in baby oil, and he's here to kick some serious ass. So let's talk about it. Vin Diesel in the movie, how does he do? He's lost Paul Walker, so he's more one note, and he's always been one note. They've always been sort of one note. Vin Diesel's the dramatic one that's just angry and simmering with rage at times, and Paul Walker, the more light-sided part of them. So in this, like, he's villainous, he's going through some very dramatic things. His character, he's really conflicted. It's interesting to see him on the villainous side against his family. So I think Vin Diesel mostly does pretty damn good with that, and where it goes was very interesting, and I liked it. Charlize Theron as the villain, yeah, Charlize Theron's great in a lot of things. Usually everything she's wonderful in. And you know, Fury Road, Mad Max, her as Furiosa, that kind of makes sense why they would want her in this. And I love her in that, but in this, they give her shitty hair and she's just like, basically they try to make her the Joker, Heath Ledger's Joker, where she's all about human nature and controlling them and fate and all these things, where she can predict what every person will do to use them like a puppet master and what she's trying to do. But she just kind of stands around and gives speeches and does, it's all show and no go, as they say in the movie. When it comes time for her to put up or shut up, it's very disappointing. So as a villain, she's a great actress, but not the best villain in the world. But at least we got great captivating heroes to follow for the most part. Vin Diesel's on the bad guy side, so Dwayne Johnson taking charge. Awesome, I love that. Dwayne Johnson, he couldn't have more muscles if he tried. As Hobbs, he's just walking around dripping with baby oil and charisma, throwing out one-liners here and there, because we got Jason Statham back, so they're just yelling insults at each other. It's just masculine, macho, back and forth insults. It's kind of awesome. It's kind of funny. And like, Dwayne Johnson, fantastic. When he's got to kick some ass in this, wonderful. And Jason Statham, I was happy to see him come back because he was really wasted in Furious 7. As a villain, he wasn't given nearly enough to do. They misused him in this. They bring him back and they use him right, and I just love it. Him and Hobbs' interplay was magic in this movie, and I want more of it. And then the rest of the team, you know, Vin Diesel, he's on the bad side now. The Rock has to take over. Awesome. Jason Statham's here. That's great. But then the rest of the team, to be honest, they kind of fall by the wayside, and it's not that I forget about them, it's just I'd rather forget about them because they're way less interesting now. In this movie, it's just like, it felt off. Maybe, is it getting old? Is it getting tired? Are these movies going on too long and now we're just sick of what we used to love? maybe because like Ludacris and Tyrese used to be wonderful, their charisma, them also throwing jabs at each other and being funny and just insulting each other, it's not as great here as it used to be. Or maybe that's just me. There's still some really good ones, but at times it's a little tired. You know, Ludacris, usually very enjoyable, he's fine. Tyrese, he's not earning that paycheck quite like he used to. And then Nathalie Emanuel, like, I thought she was just going to be in Furious 7. Her coming back, to me, felt unnecessary, to be honest. Like, yeah, the family got a little smaller, some people had to leave, so bringing her in builds it back up in size. But she's very, it's just like she's redundant to have. Tej is a hacker, and now she's a hacker, so they double hack, and they bond on being hackers, and it's redundant and not necessary. She can't even drive, so she basically becomes a hanger-on where, okay, Ludacris will drive and she'll sit there, and that's what she's there for. Like, just, what's the point? And Michelle Rodriguez in this, her and Dom used to always be together, and so in this, she's got a lot of dramatics to play off. Her man left the family, and now she's got to go against him, try to bring him back, and she's conflicted and going through all these things. She's fine overall. There's the most memorable thing about her is actually one action sequence. I'm sorry, it's just like a weird goof to bring up, but she like gets thrown around and suddenly her accent turns into some sort of Jersey thing. Ramsey, how much time we talking here? Like suddenly her voice just goes like, what was that? That's the most memorable thing about her in the movie, to be honest. She's fine. And then let's not forget Kurt Russell and Scott Eastwood, even though the movie sorta does. Kurt Russell's here to be Kurt Russell, and he's awesome. He's barely used, but he adds a nice flavor of fun. And then Scott Eastwood, I don't know quite what they're planning to do with him. It feels like they might want to use him in more movies. Is he going to try to replace Paul Walker? I don't know what's going to happen. I thought he was fine. I mean, you look at the guy, he looks like his dad, and you're just like, I want to like you for that alone. And he's fine in the movie. But what are these Fast and Furious movies about? Is it about great acting? Not necessarily. What's it about? It's about mixing a few things together. Family with some fun and some badass, awesome, usually as practical as they can, action. And I know in my Guardians of the Galaxy 2 review, I threw a little bit of a punch at this movie, a little insult, like they say they're about family, but they're not. It's bullshit. I was kind of joking, because these movies actually are. When you go back and watch them, you realize you might forget it unless you rewatch them and, like, remember. It's not just they say it a lot, they actually really are about family. The group is a family. They're a cohesive family unit. And since like the 4th, 5th movie, family has been the major drive of these movies, and that's what the plots sort of build around in their themes. And it's pretty good in that way, because you gotta, like, you can have silly, fun action movies, but they need to be about something, and family is usually what the movies are about, and they do it pretty well here. Those themes of family hit home pretty well in this movie. They're very interesting because we have family turning on each other, and bringing in closer together, and the family's being thrown for a loop and all this and that. It's cool stuff. It's interesting what some of the characters go through. These movies at times are a little bit soap operatic. Like, go back to number 6. We thought she was dead. She's alive, but she has amnesia. And like all these dumb shit, and not to mention sometimes the action's so ridiculous. Vin Diesel will drive off a mountain and it'll roll a billion times, but he's fine because he had a roll cage. Like, they're ridiculous, they're silly. But still, they go for the dramatics. They don't go too crazy, but they have dramatic. It's not just for a lark. They want to tell a dramatic story, and they just expect you to go with it, even though at times the action can be redonkulous. And the action is kind of crazy in this, but I loved it. Like the prison riot scene. Best scene in the movie. You got The Rock, Jason Statham. There's a riot in a prison. They're going to kick some ass. Loved it. There's a car apocalypse scene in New York where there's just massive car destruction on a crazy scale. That was pretty cool. The last big end action sequence, they're in Russia, the cars are driving on ice, all this crazy stuff. F. Gary Gray, some of his direction, his choice of shots, what he's doing with the camera at times, very cool. I like that. You know, F. Gary Gray's not the greatest director. I don't think of him as a master of his craft, but he can make very good movies. Compared to some of the previous movies, I used to think Justin Lin was like the best, but then James Wan did some really cool things with the camera, and F. Gary Gray, they're doing things with the camera that I kind of like more. Sometimes his action will get maybe a little too quick cut, and in this, sometimes they do a couple longer takes. There's more interesting things with the camera than just over-editing it to try and make it exciting. And I appreciate a different type of directing style, and it worked. And yeah, they try to keep it as practical as they can. Not everything is going to be practical. They got to use CGI, but at times, like the grounded realism that they try to use looks good. Like the action, you buy it because it's happening a lot of the time. And then lastly, I also want to give a shout out to the music. I love these movies and their music. You get a lot of great hip-hop, rap type music in these movies. You know, you get Brian Tyler doing his score, and I like the overall, the Fast and Furious score. You know what it sounds like. Dun 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 dun, that thing, I think it's fine enough. It gets me a little bit amped when you hear it. But like their hip-hop music they use throughout the movies, it just gives you a fun, easygoing vibe at times. I buy all their soundtracks. They're good. Yeah, Fate of the Furious, they're mixing up the formula a little bit. We're still getting great badass action, an interesting story of where these characters are going, changing. They're not the same characters leaving this movie that they are when they begin. They've gone in some very different directions. They're changed. The family dynamic has been tweaked a little bit. It's a fun, enjoyable movie. Is it maybe a little bit tired? You know, some of the banter is a little bit too much. Not all the banter works. Tyrese isn't quite earning those paychecks like he used to. But these movies are meant to be fun. You can't take them 100% serious, and I don't. You know, they got their dramatic moments. Some of them really work. Some of them you're like, wow, I'm a little bit moved. But sometimes it's just silly, over the top. The Rock is gonna like hit someone and they're gonna go flying doing triple flips or something. Some crazy shit. People are gonna get in a few car wrecks and get out and be just fine and run away. There's some stuff that hurts your brain if you think about it too hard. It is a little disappointing with the villain. Charlize Theron was not the best antagonist, and really the way it all comes together and it finalizes out and where it's going from here, I felt a little bit cheated, to be honest. There wasn't as much of a climax and a coming together and a closure that I needed in the movie. They left some shit up in the air in a way that felt like deliberate sequel bait that was lazy, and I was a little insulted. Like, you gotta give me proper closure, not just like, alright, we would have a great climax, but we're gonna just save it for later. That was very disappointing. Overall, the Fast and Furious movies are still, like, they're a dependable choice. You want to go see a good action movie, you want to have a lot of fun, Fast and the Furious movies are still, like, dependable, and that's a franchise you stick with because they're giving you characters you like. I like being in this world with Dom and Hobbs and all these people and just seeing them interact, even if it's not as strong at times. I like being in this Fast and Furious world. It's a lot of fun. At this point, I feel like I'm part of the family. You know, it's all about family. I feel like I get to experience the family. Going back to one of these movies every couple years, it's like a good family reunion where you get to have some fun. Maybe not quite as good as Fast 5 or Furious 7, but it's one of the better ones for sure. It's, I would say, probably the third best in the franchise. I would give Fate of the Furious a B+. It's a really enjoyable film. Comment below, tell me your thought of the Fate of the Furious, or hashtag F8 Fate. Get it? Yeah, comment below, tell me your thoughts, and thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.